Hey everyone, thank you for stopping by my channel. So I decided to talk about my story being raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. We know that everybody has different experiences. A lot of it has to do with the strictness of their parents, the type of congregation they're in, and also one other factor is their personality. So I have very strict parents, especially my mother. That contributed to my experience as a young witness child. But I also had the type of personality where I would call myself a perfectionist. I would call myself the type of person that is all or nothing. Being raised a witness with strict parents and being this type of personality really can take a toll. Now, if you've watched my previous, short intro video, you knew that I have been out of the organization for 20 years. But I left when I was almost 22, so I was really in there longer than, you know, I've been out. And a lot of things weren't really evident to me. A lot of the things that I had a problem with still, up to this day, I didn't really know until more recently. So, like I said, my parents were very strict. I was always required to go to all the meetings, study for my meetings, comment, be in a theocratic ministry school at a very young age. I think I got in it at 7. At the age of 9, I was baptized. I remember my mother and I reading or studying the Live Forever book when I was 8, and we calculated how old those who were on the earth, those who would not die or not pass away by the end of the system. That's what they believed back then, the generation that would not pass away. We calculated their ages, and they were very old at that time. So that was like 1986 or something like that. And we were like, oh man, they got to be in their 70s or 80s, and I knew people didn't live that long. Even as an 8-year-old, I was just terrified then because I knew that I had to hurry up and get baptized. And I remember being very sad because I liked school even then. And I just knew, or imagined going to middle school and high school and graduating. And I remember thinking like, man, I'm not even going to be able to graduate from high school. That made me really sad. But I got baptized at 9 that next year. And I just dived in head first. I was very devoted, very devoted to it all. I loved going out in service. I loved going out and street witnessing downtown. I loved doing all of that stuff. I didn't really have any doubts about it until I was grown. So as a kid, what I remember my livelihood, like what I remember my life being like is all of the service and everything felt good, but I remember being afraid a lot. I remember those images in the watchtowers or awakes. I don't even remember, they probably were in both, of Armageddon and the Great Tribulation. I remember scriptures about people's eye sockets rotting before they even die, or their tongue rotting in their mouth, or something like that, and birds eating people carcasses. And I remember being so afraid of that stuff. I didn't dream about it. I don't remember doing that, but I just remember thinking, I have to stay faithful. So that was what my life was consumed by, just those type of thoughts, fear and guilt. As I started getting older, of course, and becoming a teenager and starting to get into, my hormones and stuff, I struggled with that type of stuff, trying to stay faithful. As I mentioned in the other video, I was like a goody two shoe child, so I always tried to encourage other people to do what was right. A lot of people didn't want to hang around me because they thought I was just, I don't know, guess too good or whatever. But I would tell on people. I remember one particular young sister that ended up having sex, and I remember telling her that she confided in me too. That's the thing. She confided in me, and then I ended up telling her that I was gonna have to tell her mom, like I was obligated, and we ended up not being friends because I think she was gonna tell her mom at first, but I mean on her own, but then I kind of ended up telling for her because she didn't tell in a timely manner or something. I don't know what happened, but we ended up no longer being friends after that. So it was kind of little stuff like that, that I dealt with. As I got older, I remember struggling a lot. Because I had, I'd struggled with those things, trying to stay, keep my virginity and all of that stuff. One thing that really stuck out to me, though, or sticks out to me even to this day, is that I realized that one thing that I lost or never developed is my own identity. And I don't know how many of you out there can relate to that. You probably can, though, especially if you were raised in it. Because your whole identity is wrapped up around doing things in the organization. Your whole identity is how good of a witness are you? How much do you kind of match up to the other spiritual kids in the congregation that are good examples, you know? So I had things that I like to do outside of being a witness, like writing poetry or even singing. And I remember my parents just kind of, oh, that's great, baby. You know how to do, you know how to write or you know how to sing or whatever. But they never really pushed me to do anything else, of course. They never encouraged me to get better at these things. And I learned at a very early age that the things that made my parents proud was how good of a witness I was, how good my presentations were at the door, how good my talks were in the ministry school, how good my comments were, how well I studied my magazine. You know, that was it. So the things that I loved, the things that could, would be considered something that makes you who you are, your gifts, your talents, I had to suppress all that. And it was really uncomfortable, but I didn't really pay attention to it because a lot of the things that I did, I feel like I had to bury those feelings. So I didn't really feel them until I left, you know? I didn't even know I was suppressing anything. I thought this was just me. I just love Jehovah so much and this is just how I want to live my life. I didn't really realize it until I left. But one thing I remember that even to this day continues to not haunt me, but it continues to make me a little sad, is that when I was 17, I sang for a producer. And actually, it's kind of weird. He was a witness, and he had produced, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a witness that used to be, it was a singer also. And I sang for him because his wife heard me sing one time, and then she told him about me or whatever. And so I did that, and he heard me, and he ended up offering me a singing contract, and I was 17. And do you know that I turned it down? I turned it down because my reasoning was I started thinking about getting too much, far gone into the world. And I thought about Michael Jackson and how he got so distracted. And look at him, and now he's doing all this stuff with Thriller. And, I just started thinking of the stupidest stuff of why I didn't want to do it. And I was actually really just afraid to do it because I was scared of being consumed by Satan's system. And then I was already struggling with the stuff, being a teenager and my hormones and all that stuff. And I was just like, no, if I get too far into the world, I probably could never come back. So I ended up turning it down. And at that time, I know I regretted the doing that, but I didn't realize the gravity of that decision until years later, after I had left and everything, because I started trying to sing again, and I just can't seem to find my voice. I know it sounds weird because once you sing, you should be able to, but it's like I'm not even connected to it anymore. And again, being the type of personality that I am, I know that it's because I buried it. I buried myself. I told myself even then, oh, you don't really want to sing like that. It's just a hobby. The most important thing is serving Jehovah. And so that part of myself, it just seems like I can't even get it back. I try to write even sometimes, and it doesn't flow like that anymore. So that affected me being raised as a witness. I was very much in fear and in guilt all the time. And I did not really have an identity. And even now, being gone for 20 years, there are still things that I struggle with when it comes to fear, when it comes to letting go completely, when it comes to doing things like planning for the future, because for so long it was, why does it matter? The end is about to come. So why do we need to, make a plan for something to do 2 years down the road or 5 years down the road? Why does that matter? The end is right around the corner, and it's so crazy because even though for so long I haven't really believed that, I've still lived my life as if I believe that. So it's just quite odd, it's quite odd, but the way that we are affected is really deep. And there's many more things that I want to talk about regarding my story, but I just wanted to come on here and just share a few things. And I ask that you would please leave me some comments and let me know how it affected you. And if you're not in it anymore, are you still struggling? What are you still struggling with? Because as I stated, we need to do this together. This community on YouTube and other platforms, there's a reason why it's here, and there's a reason why there are so many people that are coming out and leaving the organization, talking about their stories, because it's just time to do it. It's time. It's been time. It's time overdue. And for me, I've been gone for so long, but I've been also reluctant or afraid to talk about my story. Because again, there is a lot more to it that I've not talked about just yet. So again, leave me a comment, and I look forward to interacting with you. And I thank you so much for tuning in to this video. I will see you on the next one. Thank you. Have a great day.